This is Jade Esteban Estrada.
And this is Elaine Wolf.
And we are both with Who Runs This Town. Today we are going to talk to Helen Ballou, who's the Executive Director of the Headwaters of Incarnate Word. Her group is currently involved in a lawsuit with the City of San Antonio over a 2007 bond project that, if it's done the way the city wants to, it would fundamentally change this part of the river right here, the San Antonio River that runs through the heart of downtown.
It's hot news in the city of San Antonio. Check it out.
Half the congregation lives in Mexico or Peru or Zambia. They're not actually here, but this is their congregational home place here in the head of the river, and they care deeply about that place and its connection to the whole story of San Antonio. And so they are supportive of this vision of opening up the sanctuary that they gave to a nonprofit ministry to preserve the nature, the culture, the history of this area going back even before San Antonio was a town, right? And share it with all of us because it's part of all of our story. It's not just theirs. Frederick Law Olmsted in the 1850s came through, and he said when he saw the spring, the whole river gushes up in one giant sparkling burst from the earth. It's beyond your possible conception of a spring. It just boggles the mind. And, I just would have given anything to be able to, go back in time and see that.
But the history in this area goes much further back. I know that part of your group are some of the descendants of Native Americans who first settled this area. Can you talk a little bit about their history right in this spot?
The springs themselves, they called Yanahuana, which means upflowing waters of the Spirit, and their whole creation stories are associated with those springs there. And so that goes back kind of a long way.
The amazing blue hole that shot up like a geyser.
20 feet up in the air.
Right, original Spanish settlers when they came through would describe it that way, right?
Yeah, the springs with the big hole in the rock, it's huge, would send a column of water 20 feet in the air. That's an enormous amount of artesian pressure. And it's mind-boggling when you stand there now at the well, Blue Hole, and you visualize that and you see how far we've come. The source waters are still down there. The springs have just kind of recessed into those source waters for now, but they'll flow again. They'll come back, and that's to me a very hopeful thing. But we do have to get a handle on our use of the water in that source, because as long as we keep taking out more than nature can replenish, the springs won't flow. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. For it is in giving that we receive. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned. And it is in dying that we are born to eternal life.
Let's talk about the lawsuit that is currently before the Fourth Court of Appeals.
Well, we asked Judge Bertelman to grant us a temporary injunction from the rapid forward progress of the drainage bond project that the city had switched to come down Hildebrand and into the San Antonio River at the headwaters, as opposed to take it down Broadway and into the San Antonio River the way the voters had approved it. But we didn't think the city should be able to do that. We weren't being heard, and the project was on a fast track to get built. I mean, we were days away from the bulldozer starting when we asked Judge Bertelman for the temporary injunction, and he granted it.
Yeah, and as part of granting that, he has to find that he thinks that you have a likelihood of prevailing.
That's right. That's right.
And
so the hard work is done in getting the temporary injunction.
If the Fourth Court were to come back and say, yes, we do think the judge abused his discretion, we are removing the temporary injunction, what would you all do next?
I really don't know if I'm at liberty to say, to tell you the truth. I think that we will take each step in turn.
Okay. You wouldn't hold a wake and go home, though?
Oh, I doubt it.
Yeah.
I doubt it.
Has there been any political fallout from suing the city? You're suing essentially city government.
Nobody wants to sue anybody. I mean, least of all Sisters of Charity of the Incarnate Word, whose whole shtick for 140 years in San Antonio has been to further progress, fulfill needs of the community, do it with a loving, healing spirit. Nevertheless, their newest ministry is one that has to do with earth care and our righting our relationship with nature and God's creation. And so to have established that ministry and set about a path of health and healing of this historic place, this sacred place, to have a threat come along that really is avoidable because there are better alternatives, kind of forced us into the corner of having to say, if we have to go to court to try to stop it, we will, but it certainly isn't the preference.
You know, I went to Incarnate Word all of my life, starting in 1953. I know the flooding. I've seen it on campus. I've seen it in the intersection here. It needs to be improved. The original plan is not what we're looking at here. This is an alternate plan which we think is not necessary and which is counterproductive to the overall plan for the river, the larger plan for the river.
At what point does someone like you go, no, that's not going to work, I have to stand up and say something? I mean, how was that for you? When did that happen in your mind?
Well, personally, it happened in my mind about the same time that I learned about it. Your question is a very good one. When do we become passive? The same question is asked of the Jews when they were being rounded up to go to the concentration camps. The question has been asked by sociologists, why did they not resist? Why did they not fight? Why did they accept it? I'm not one to answer that question, but it's a very question that's very well put. In this case, we weigh the consequences of an action and a decision in the light of the common good, in the light of the bigger picture. What other people are going to be impacted? What harm might come to the environment because of this? And so we have a responsibility through our intelligence, through our faith, and through our ability to speak out, and our responsibility as citizens to raise issues that say, we think this needs to be reconsidered in the light of the impact on a bigger good, on a greater good. And so at that point, we would take action and speak out with respect, within our rights, within the laws, not aggressively, not with violence, but in peaceful ways. And we certainly have no ill feelings towards the city. We have no ill feelings towards any individual, but we raise the issues on behalf not only of ourselves, but a lot of the people who don't have a voice. What about all of the families who use Breckenridge Park and have for generations to enjoy themselves on a Sunday afternoon? And we're looking at a sign that says it's already subject to flooding. Do we have questions to ask about those persons? Those are the questions I have.
You bring up the families in Breckenridge Park, and I'm happy you said that because it's a great seg. Are we too late to educate a generation that takes nature for granted?
Oh no, in fact, I think we are living in a time in which thanks to the internet and to other people who are conscious of these values are teaching children and in their homes and in schools about the importance of being aware of our environment and that we are stewards of the environment. What we do now will impact generations later, just like what generations before us did impact us now.
If it makes so much sense, why is there such a struggle with the city of San Antonio about how to preserve this area?
That is a very good question. Now, have you put that question to the city powers that be? I would love to hear how they would respond to that.
I may.
Yeah, I hope you will, and I'd love to know. We think that they had some other vested interests in having street work done on this little piece of Hildebrand, and other work done at the intersection that were unrelated to the drainage, but that could be globbed onto the drainage bond project and, kill 2 or 3 birds with one stone.
Right.
I think that was their thinking. They must have known it would be controversial, or else they wouldn't have kept it so quiet for so long.
The city's argument has changed a little bit as the lawsuit has progressed. I think the most recent version basically says, we didn't promise to put drainage pipes along this segment of Broadway and dump the water here. We promised to alleviate the flooding in this area. Can you address that a little bit?
What I'll say is that location does matter, because where all that stormwater gets put is going to have an impact. And we're going to do it today visually with a replica of the concrete wall that is 8 feet by 70 feet long in here. So our vision is to restore the natural ecology of this part of the river and work on getting all the trash out that comes flooding through from all these stormwater outfalls, and really do honor to this part of the river that's kind of where it all began. I mean, it really is. Through those big culverts, when we have those heavy rainfall events that we have, all that dirty urban trash-filled stormwater is going to come shooting out of those 2 6 by 9 foot culverts right into this part of the river up here. This is a part of the river that we want to do the same kind of ecological restoration work that's currently happening down along the missions. And we believe that the headwaters reach of the river and the missions reach of the river are intimately connected, and we need to do honor at both ends of the river.
So to see the size illustrated with this display is going to help educate people as to what exactly is about to happen here. Because once it's installed, I don't know that it can ever be changed back again. Some things that we do to impact the environment are irreversible.
Most people think adelante, move forward. Why look back?
I think no matter where we move in life, we all need an anchor place. We all need a place to say this is home. We all need a place that embraces our values, that brings us back to those values that nurtured us and brought us into existence and into life. And the values of nature, the values of family gatherings, the values of the animal life that are so beautifully represented here, the flowers, the trees, the very nature of the river, the generations that have come and gone here for thousands of years on this river links us into this whole history, and it makes us remember that we are a part of all of humanity, not just this generation. Well, I would say that I am saddened that it seems to be that this is the only way that this could be addressed. I think that it was addressed before we took this action, and the result was not satisfactory apparently, and so I'm saddened that it has come to the point where we have to take this action. I wish it had not come to this.
You were talking about time travel earlier and how you thought it would be cool to be back 100 years ago when this was first observed and written about. If you were successful in preserving this area, what would you say if you could time travel to someone in 100 years with a similar fight to preserve this? What would you say to them?
Well, hopefully in 100 years, they would just look around them and see that we had realized this vision of doing honor to this place, restoring it, healing something inside ourselves in the process, by the way, and they wouldn't be facing these kinds of ugly threats to the sanctity of this area. But if they were, I'd just remind them what I just said, that this is where it all began.